Hello, everyone. How are you all doing today? I hope you're having a great start to your week. I'm Emmy, your host here in the Pami Code Facebook group. And today we have a special guest who's joining us to talk about career, finding your purpose, finding the confidence. If you're someone who's been struggling to find your path, maybe you're not really sure what you want to do in life, or maybe you actually do know what you want to do, but you just couldn't find the confidence to actually do it and make it, maybe make a living out of it.
Mm.
Our guest today, Sarah Bramall, is a transformation coach, and we're here to talk about career, mindset, purpose, all of that. And so, Sarah, thanks for joining us. Welcome to our group.
Oh, hello. Thanks so much for inviting me. It's really lovely to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Yeah, great.
Well, Sarah, I'm really interested because I met people. Well, I've met a lot of people in my circle who are a little bit struggling when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
purpose. It doesn't really matter if you are a young person or if you are someone who's going through a midlife crisis, or maybe even someone who's even close to retirement. Finding your purpose, something that puts fire in your belly is, that's
Mm-hmm.
something that some people struggle with, which I think should be quite natural. What do you say about this, when you meet people who struggle to find their purpose?
I think when people struggle to find their purpose, very often we are conditioned in society to take a path that other people expect of us. So, particularly when we're high achievers, we kind of we work hard at school and then we take the subjects at school that people expect us to take as they're good subjects so that we, maybe go to university or follow like a good career or whatever. And we get a lot of our self-esteem from those kind of accolades of having, earning a certain amount of money or having a kind of well respected career. And we tend to follow that path without really stopping to think about the implications of it. And the women that I work with often come to question this when they have had children, because, when you have children, your values change and you start to think, actually, I want to do something different. And sometimes it becomes more about kind of giving back or creating a better world. Sometimes it becomes more about actually, I've worked so hard to get where I want to, and I want to be a really good role model for my children. And I think that's where sometimes it can be easier to find a stronger sense of purpose, because you're not just looking at what you are doing, you're kind of thinking, you start to think about the bigger picture. How does what I do impact on the people around me? How am I contributing to the bigger picture here? And I think that helps with purpose when you look beyond, firstly, what others expect of you, and secondly, when you start to look beyond yourself.
Right. Oh, that's actually fascinating because I can
Mm.
totally relate to that. I
Mm.
started reflecting about my bigger purpose, if you like, after I gave birth to my child. As a teenager, when I was in school, all I had to do was, do well in school. Because that's sort of the identity that I embraced, being
Mm.
good at school, and then getting the job that's expected from the degree that I got, going
Mm.
into university, becoming a university lecturer myself. And then after having a child, suddenly it's not just about your career anymore, or it's
Mm.
not just about me anymore.
Mm.
There's another human being, and it's all about life. This is a new life, and it's having this new identity, being a good role model, spending time with your child, having the freedom to do what you want to do, but at the same time leaving a legacy and a mark as you. But I do understand that, and especially, in my case as well, I did experience this, that this could be quite overwhelming,
Yeah.
because it's almost like you're trying to figure out a lot of things, and
Yeah.
as a new mom,
Mm.
you might be physically exhausted.
Yeah.
The sleepless nights and all these social expectations from
Mhm.
new mothers.
Yeah.
There are external pressures. So how do you support women who might be going through this process? Because I've seen it in myself. I've seen it in women before me, who've moved on from their hugely successful career and transforming into something else, and having
Mm,
that courage to be someone else. Well, not
mhm.
necessarily to be someone else, but to do something else.
Yeah, yeah.
So how do you support women who go through this process?
Well, I think it is a process, and I think it's really rare for somebody to make a big leap or a big career change immediately having had children. I mean, some people do, some people kind of start to plan it on maternity leave and they make that big leap. And, and I take my hat off to them. I think that's amazing. But I think for most of us, as you said, we're kind of struggling with that change of identity and sleepless nights and maybe thinking about going to work, all of those things. So I think it's step by step. And I think the first step is to think about you and your identity, because what happens so often is that when we go back to work, we are, we work really hard to kind of, almost prove ourselves, to prove that we're just as good as we were before we had children.
Oh God,
And
so
don't we
embarrassed. It
work
just
super
completely
hard?
reminds me of where I
Oh,
was. Go
yeah,
on.
just you don't want anybody to think any the less of you. So, I mean, I've even done jobs where I've kind of barely like mentioned my children because people, I just didn't want people to have that kind of perception of me as a mother, which is awful, really. So that's the first thing, your identity, thinking about, you get swept up in work and in caring for the children, right? You're trying to prove to yourself that you can do both roles to the best of your ability. But what happens after a while is that you just totally forget about yourself.
Mm.
What I say to women is that self-care is so important, because when you are, and it doesn't have to be indulgent, but when you're just giving yourself time to care for yourself physically and mentally, you're actually then able to keep in touch with who you really are and remember what your identity is outside of employee and mum.
Mm.
And that for me is really important. And I think that's where the first stage comes from. That's the
I
first
I
step.
I do struggle with that.
Yeah.
And because self-care could look it could look like it could manifest in different ways in different
Mm.
people. Some people, self-care means just having time in the bath,
Yeah.
or just going out for a walk. And um but sometimes, especially for those who are massive workaholics,
Mm.
who really couldn't find the time or even the
Mm.
space to think about
Mm.
themselves,
Mm.
how do you enable them to reflect on self-care if they
Mm.
couldn't recognize it themselves, if that makes sense?
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I think it is hard, and I think some people do find it really, really hard to slow down. But I think if you can even just start with 5 minutes or 10 minutes in the day, and just think to yourself, what would really make a difference to me today? Because we all know what that is. We kind of all know like what makes us happy or what makes a difference. So, I mean, it could be different things for different people. It could just be, I'm just gonna sit and have a cup of tea, or I'm just going to take a walk around the block, or I'm just going to sit and read, or just those kind of like small steps, so that you just are able to create a bit of a pause. Because that's another thing, I think, the whole thing, like when you've got kids at home and you feel like you've done a day's work before you even get into work, don't you? And you feel exhausted, before you even got there. And then equally at the other end of the day, you get back and you're kind of rushing to get back to pick up the children, and then you rush it
Mm.
in and doing dinner and bath time and all of that. And then by the time you finish in the evening, like sitting on the sofa at 9 o'clock, and you're just ready to pass out, aren't you? Like there's
Mm.
just like no time for self-care. So it's just thinking, how can I just find that 10 minutes or 5 minutes even, when I'm not rushing,
Mm.
when I'm not, when I can just create that pause. And I've done it, lots of different ways. So just thinking, okay, when I arrive at work, I'm just going to sit in the car for 10 minutes and just do some meditation
Sure.
before I rush into work. Or equally, that could be at lunchtime or at the other end of the day, but just 5 or 10 minutes, just in those tiny, tiny blocks of time to create a pause in between those roles.
That's
And
very helpful. I
yeah.
actually did some workshops with midwives and nurses.
Yeah.
And what I taught them was, before you start your shift,
Mm-hmm.
just spend 5 times to 5 minutes, no, not 5 times, 5 minutes to just ground yourself, just to have
Mm-hmm.
that time to position yourself that okay, you're now at work, just find your center, find stay grounded, because there's a lot of chaos
Yes.
in the hospital. Sometimes they deal with life threatening situations, and you always need to be on top of things. When you get to your workplace, I was teaching them how to just spend that 5 minutes just to find your center and ground yourself. And at
Mm.
the end of their shift, again, having that just 5 minutes to
Yeah.
just release all the stress, to find peace and calm before you leave the hospital, leave all the stresses at work. So by the time you step out of the hospital, you're actually ready to go home, and
Yeah.
without the burden of the day's work. So
Mm.
self-care could look like that, even just 5 minutes or 10 minutes, just to find that space and time for yourself, can be really helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's super important. Yeah,
Right. So you said, so the first is really finding time for yourself, actually understanding who you are.
yeah.
When you got that, what's next?
Well, the next thing then is to start to create your vision. So start to imagine, and I do this a lot with my clients, start to imagine, for example, what your ideal day would look like. So from when you first wake up in the morning, where are you? Who are you spending time with? What are you doing? What's really kind of lighting you up? What are you eating? The whole thing. And then
Envisioning it. Yeah, it's
envision that.
dreaming, it's daydreaming,
Dreaming,
really.
dreaming, isn't it? And then, even through to when you get back into bed at the end of the day, looking back on the day and thinking, what's been the highlight for me today? And just allowing yourself to dream in that way. And that can be allowing yourself to dream, about like your ideal work day, or it can be like not, can not be a work day. But that is really key, is starting to have that dream, starting to have that vision. Because what we tend to do is we start to think about, okay, I want to go back to work, or okay, I want to do this. But then the first thing we go to is the obstacles come up first, like, oh, that
Yeah,
wouldn't work because the childcare, or that wouldn't work because it's not affordable, or
you
that.
get
And we start,
scared immediately.
we find the, and we focus on the obstacles before we allow ourselves to think about what we actually want. But if we can train ourselves to actually start to think, okay, that's what I want, then we can start to think, okay, so how can I just take one tiny step
To
towards
make
it?
that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, it doesn't have to be the whole thing. It doesn't have to kind of be all at once. When people talk about career change, they often think it's kind of like, like immediate is sudden. But as you know,
Mm.
and I know
It
because we've
takes
both done it,
time.
it takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you recommend having vision boards, or,
Mm.
meditation, and just, I love daydreaming. I
Yes.
mean, some people couldn't really stay still and just stare at the sky and dream. But
Yeah.
I like staring outside the window and watch the clouds, and
Yeah.
just dream, because it's
Mm.
it's so freeing, and it no one could stop you from doing that, right? You
Right.
can be and do whatever you want in your
Exactly.
mind, and I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
So what techniques do you recommend to encourage this vision, and to encourage your clients, for example, in actually imagining what they want?
Yeah, well, so imagining, as I said, kind of, doing that visualization of your ideal day, imagining that ideal day, but even visualizing as you go into the day, visualizing kind of doing almost kind of making little film for yourself of, okay, what's the day going to look like? I'm going to walk into this meeting, and how's that going to feel? And I'm going to do this talk, and I'm going to imagine it all going really well. So just starting to get in the habit of creating, visualizing the outcome that you want. But you mentioned vision boards, which is funny because I did a vision board. I host vision board workshops, and we had one
I
on
love
Friday
it.
night. Love a vision board. So for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, it's just a collage of words and images that inspire you. And the reason I think vision boards work so well is because often when we set goals for ourselves, again, we do it from the logical mind. So we do it with
Mm.
all of that idea about what other people expect of us or what society expects from us. Whereas when we create a vision board, it really comes from the intuition, I think. We just kind of, we just go through magazines and we just find words and images that we're drawn to. It really is that
Yeah, it's
simple.
the energy, isn't it? You're drawn to
Energy.
something that you're aligned with.
Yes, yes. And then people, always kind of go when they do their first vision board, they're like, how's it all going to come together? But
It's
it
not.
does.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
does. It's
Just
amazing.
dream. You know what?
Yeah.
I've been following Abraham Hicks,
Yes.
and she was saying something like, just dream. The how is not your problem. You know, it will
Yeah.
unfold. But unless you actually know and understand and get excited about what you want,
Yeah.
the how will follow naturally.
Yeah.
And putting on my psychologist's hat, because
Mm,
I'm a trained psychologist,
mm,
we do use visualization
mm.
a lot. So for example, when we work with athletes,
Yeah.
for example, mental imagery, encouraging them to envision the game, how they're going to achieve what they need to achieve in the game, and feel as if it is real. And
Mm,
because you're training your mind, you're training your brain to see it as real, when it becomes real, or when the circumstance presents itself, you feel as if you've already been there. You've
yeah.
practiced it. You know what you need to do. You're comfortable with it.
Mm,
So with guided meditation and with visualization exercises, it's just training your brain to be comfortable with that kind of reality.
yeah.
And when you are comfortable with it, you're actually attracting it. So, there's a lot of mix in psychology, law of attraction, all these
Mhm.
things. But for me as a psychologist, it really is about training your brain to be comfortable with this reality. And when the circumstance presents itself, it feels like you've already been there. You're comfortable with it. You're okay with it, and you're open to
Mm.
actually accepting it.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, and what I actually find interesting is we've got a lot of research in psychology where we looked at the brain activity,
Okay.
when it comes to visualization and the
Mhm.
real thing, and it turns
Mm,
out that the same neural pathways are being
mhm.
triggered when you are visualizing something. So for example, you're an athlete and you're visualizing that you're kicking the ball in a certain direction, the same neural pathways are actually being triggered
Wow.
when you are doing it. Or the same with, for example, surgeons who are visualizing doing like really complicated surgery, practicing
Ah,
it in their minds
mm.
triggers the same neural pathways. The same with musicians, for example, practicing the performance in their head. Same neural pathways are being fired than when you're actually performing the task. So again, from a neurological, psych point of view,
Mhm.
you're really retraining your brain, making those pathways
Mm.
stronger. And when the real thing happens,
Mhm.
it's like you've done it before. You're prepared, you're ready, and I absolutely love it. I love
Oh,
visualization.
fascinating. No, it's wonderful, isn't it? Yeah, fascinating. And really influential people have used vision boards as well for, to
Mm.
great effect. Oprah, for example, is a massive advocate of using vision boards to kind of, to set your goals and then to manifest it.
Yeah, it's. I think it helps you to stay grounded. It
Mm,
reminds you of what you're aiming to do, because sometimes challenges arise and you just forget. It's like, oh, it's too hard. But
yes.
when you have it on your vision board, and you just keep getting excited, and
Yes.
that it will happen to you. But I have to say, for some people, there are people who create vision boards, and it creates a sense of frustration that they're not there
Okay.
yet.
Mm.
How do you manage those feelings that, okay, this is what I want, but I'm not really sure if I can get there? How do you
Mm.
manage that?
That's an interesting question, isn't it? Yeah, how do you manage the fact? I mean, I guess it's the same with any kind of goal setting process, isn't it? That when you start, it can feel like it's a really long way off and it feels like maybe you're never going to get there. I just think you have to just think it's a journey and you have to be patient with that journey and to trust that it will happen in its
Mm,
own good time. And I think, as long as we keep taking steps forward in the right direction, and
yeah,
sometimes we'll take a step back because there will be an obstacle or we'll fall
it
back.
happens.
It happens, but when we keep our eye on the horizon and keep taking those small incremental steps, that is a huge, that's hugely powerful, isn't it? And
I
then
love
that,
that. Yeah,
hmm,
it's little steps at a time. And you
yeah.
also advocate like keeping monitoring those little steps and
Hmm.
celebrating those little steps.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, a huge advocate of gratitude and recording. I think that's hugely important. But equally, I think it's really important to take time to acknowledge at the end of the day and the end of the week, this is the progress that I've made, because it's so easy to dismiss it. And this is my kind of instinct as well, is to be quite hard on myself, to always be kind of be looking forward. And I have to really train myself to slow down and acknowledge the progress that I have made. And it's really powerful as well to kind of look back to say, okay, I did this actually over the new year, obviously with being, 2020.
Mm.
And I did the exercise where I kind of looked back, I took myself back 10 years in time and wrote down who I was and what was happening 10 years ago. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's
The journey.
incredible. The
Yeah.
journey is incredible. And you don't always recognize that even over the course of a year, but over the course of a decade, you look back and think, gosh, an awful lot has changed. So that, yeah, it's acknowledging that, isn't it? It's about taking time just to acknowledge it.
It's celebrating the journey. And what I like is we actually share a lot of principles and strategies. I mean, with the PAMI code, it's PAMI because we talk about purpose, we talk
Mm.
about action, momentum, and energy. And the energy really is you take incremental steps, one little step at a time. You keep the momentum, stay consistent, but always remind yourself of your purpose. But the
Absolutely.
energy of having practicing gratitude,
Mm.
practicing forgiveness and compassion. If you actually stumble every
Yeah.
now and then, it's okay.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
part of being human. But recognizing the journey and celebrating your wins, and even actually celebrating it with the people who are supporting you, actually makes the journey more enjoyable.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And being on the journey, sharing the journey with other people as well.
Yeah. So is this something that you do in workshops, or how do you support the women that you help?
Okay. So, how I work with people, obviously, I work with people on a one to one basis, and that tends to be people who know that they're ready to make a change and they want to make a change, within a certain time frame, and we work one to one together. But the other way that I work with people is I have a group program, which is called Your Best Life. And we do it online on Zoom, as we are at the moment, and we work through the stages of creating your vision
Mm.
and then thinking about your values, thinking about what's important to you and driving your behavior.
I think it's good to have that
Mm.
guidance actually, because some people can get confused. You think that it is so simple. I do remember having conversations with millennials, and
Yes.
they struggle with this. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know yet. I don't know
No.
what I'm passionate about. I don't know what my core values are. And
Mm.
but when you have someone guiding you through that, it
Mm.
actually isn't that complicated.
No, it's not. And do you know what? The advantage of working in a group of people as well is that although people come from different experiences and have different goals, you realize that we're all so similar. We all struggle with the same stuff. We're all on this journey together. And to be able to share that with other people is really powerful as well. Yeah, so we do that. So we do vision and values, and then we talk about confidence and
Mm.
resilience as well. And again, just having some tools to deal with those things is really helpful. And then we talk about success habits and perseverance, because I'm sure that you'll agree with me that the vision and that kind of side of things is really, really exciting.
Yeah.
Actually, nothing happens without discipline. So we talk about that as
You'll
well.
have to, yeah. I talk about this in my books as well. Like, okay, you have a purpose, really clear purpose, you have a vision. So, but it doesn't really mean anything without action.
No,
And you
exactly.
have to be
Yeah.
consistent, maintain the momentum, but at the same time, maintain the energy as well, and have the, build those habits, like with
Mm.
gratitude and resilience, and as I've said, with confidence, because challenges will happen. It's inevitable, but you really need to find the resilience, and to power through. If your purpose is that strong, if you're grounded in your purpose,
Yeah.
and you experience challenges, going back to your purpose but keep pushing forward, is actually, you need to develop success habits um on that. So this is all part of your program.
Yeah.
How long is the program, Sarah?
So the program takes place over 12 weeks, so over 3 months. And within that, there are 6 group coaching calls within that, and a one-to-one with me as well. And then we have a private Facebook community where we kind of pop on and share our tools and ideas and successes and questions and everything, so that we keep that going. But I mean, I'm sure you will appreciate this, but when you do a course like that, for many people, it's the beginning of their personal development journey. And so when I speak to people, because I've been running this course for a couple of years now, speak to people kind of 2 years down the line, they're still learning and they're still growing,
Mm.
and they're still going back to those tools. So it's just, such a joy to see that you kind of, give people those tools, but they're still using them, even a couple of years later. And I love hearing, the kind of changes and transformations that they've made as well. So yeah,
Oh,
it's
it's so exciting. When are you opening your is it open, or when
It's
are you inviting
open,
people in?
open at the moment, actually. So it's due to start on the 10th of February. So
Oh,
yeah,
soon,
so
yes.
quite soon. Yeah. So anybody who's interested, I'm sure you'll put my details in later. But yeah, please just give me a call, and I'm really happy to share more with you.
Where can people find you?
So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. But maybe the best thing is if we pop a link in to my website at the bottom when we finish the call, if that would be okay. And I'd
Fantastic.
love
It's
to keep in
absolutely
touch.
exciting, because
Yeah.
yeah, for those women who
Mm,
would like to be part of a community, part of a guided, structured
mm,
program that
yeah,
will help you to reignite your passion, find that space and time to know you as you, understand your core values, and finding that vision, understanding your vision for what you want to do, having that consistent action and accountability. I assume you have that, and developing habits for success.
exactly.
I think
Yeah,
it's a wonderful way to do it with women who are on the same boat. So
yeah.
we'll pop in the details in the description in this video, and feel free to get in touch with Sarah if you need more information.
Do. Yeah, yeah. I'd love to speak to you. Oh,
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for sharing this with us, Sarah. I'm sure, um, to those of you who are listening today, you'll find value from this conversation. You're not the only one who might feel a bit lost every now and then, and especially if you are a parent, or if you are a mother who've been on a career break for a while. Maybe you lack you lost the confidence to go back to work. Maybe you've forgotten who you are, and
mm,
not really sure what you need to do next. I think joining a program such as Sarah's, or maybe even just, yeah, finding that space and time to know who you are, and tapping into your core values, your vision for your future, and go for it. Get support, and go for it.
absolutely.
So yeah, thanks, Sarah. And yeah,
Oh, thank
everyone, thanks for
you.
tuning in. And we'll catch up again next time for another purposeful conversations with Emmy here in the PAMI Code Facebook group. Until then, take care and bye for now. Bye.
Bye.